Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out this evening. I'm Deborah Schoen, and I'm your host this evening for an evening of poetry at Adrian's Memorial Library. This segment will be taped. So next month we have Sean Smith. He's from the Carmel polling area. And this evening we have Jennifer Howse. And afterwards we'll have an open mic. Can I just see a show of hands of who might want to read at the open mic? Great. So we have, and what's your name?
Me, Emily.
Emily, Carl, and Clayton. Did I get everybody? Okay. So that's how we'll do it. Emily, Carl, and Clayton. After Jennifer reads, and then and I'll read a few poems, and then Jennifer will close us out. So Jennifer L. Howse, she has a PhD, and she served as the March of Dimes Foundation president for 25 years, and was recognized for her many contributions to maternal and child health by election to the National Academy of Medicine in 2011. She has been writing poetry since 2019 and recently completed her first chapbook, but unfortunately it's not here and it's not for sale. So her poems have appeared in the Chronogram magazine. So if and you are presently from Cold Spring, right? So please all help me give Jennifer a nice warm Poughkeepsie welcome.
Thanks very much, Debbie, and thanks to everyone who gave up their evening to be here tonight. I have many wonderful friends in this group. I want to start with Matt Smith, who is a tech-savvy guy like you'll never meet in your whole life, and he is my tech coach, and I have to say he has made a huge difference in my life. So thank you, Matt. And he runs a business, so anyone that needs a tech coach, there's Matt. Kathy and Carl and Emily are all from the Writers Book Club. Emily is our fearless leader. You'll hear from Carl at the open mic, and I'm very, very happy about that. And Emily will be giving a prose poem at the open mic, and I'm equally happy about that. And our friends Mike and Joe, and my first listener, Lynn, who has had to suffer through 2.5 years of listening to the drafts of these poems, but always is patient and gives amazing and constructive feedback. And she never tells me they aren't good, so that makes me feel great. Tonight I'm going to be reading from my first collection of poems. It's called The Vanished Orchard. And you may wonder, how did this collection come to be? And I would just say that it was born from the pandemic and the availability of lots of free time. I decided that in this free time that I would explore the question of my ancestors' identity, because both my parents had recently died and left me with boxes and boxes and boxes of family memorabilia. Raise your hand if you've had that experience. Okay, I speak to a good group, with a good group. And also was just curious about, where did I come from? Maybe we've all had that question at one time or another. So I dug deep in these boxes and I found a lot of stories. I found stories that were happy and stories that were shocking and some stories that were sad. But I began to write poems from these stories, and I'd like to share a few of those with you tonight. These are stories of American men and women seen through the lens of their place and their time on this earth. The title, The Vanished Orchard, it's a reference to the lost Eden. It's a term used in colonial America, and it's really meant to evoke that paradise that's envisioned by people who leave a place and travel to another place to find a better life. And the first poem in the collection is entitled Ubisoot. This is Latin, for those of you who remember your Latin in school, and it means literally, where are those who came before me? And to answer that question, we're going to have to travel way back in time. Ubisoot. Where are those who came before me? Origin stories rarely overflow the banks of human experience, so I can hear prehistoric thunder from the hooves of horned beasts and half-human growls, see cave walls decorated with ochre testimony of the hunt. I can feel the pull of scriptural design, rib and dust, imagine a garden and wander a lost orchard, heavy with fruit of original sin and the scent of redemption. Where are those who came before me? I answer, with oceans filled by the marriage of hydrogen to oxygen, and that primordial dust spinning in its watery nursery toward the time the ancient poets emerge, and from their lineage might I learn to sing with love in measured verse the story of ancestral birth.
Wow. That's beautiful.
The next poem is called Fortuna Domi Stat, Latin again. It means the fortune of the house stands. And this was my family's motto from Norfolk, England in 1552. Fortuna Domi Stat. In a darkling time, my people sail away from English laws. Undowered daughters garb with faith, third sons wrap in promise. By grace or fortune are they dispatched to Virginia's crown grant land, where orchards grow from pilgrim furrows and cattle come to graze the fields. Revolution sings a freedom song, the patriots' ragged choir they choose. Cider pressed from victory apples sweetens their fortune with new grants of land. Plantations carved from Tennessee soil soon brim with tobacco and profit, burst with bowls of endless cotton, soft, white, picked by darker hands. Angry voices of civil war swiftly turn to requiem for fortune lost, for family broken, for all that lay in ruin. Culled from wreckage, new ambition sets sail for California, dazzle drawn by golden apples and fortune's cornucopia. The next poem is called Trace. We only have one more Latin poem. Trace comes from the Latin tractus, which means path. And this is the path by which I began to learn the truth about my ancestors. Generations slept beneath my parents' bed on amber types and cabinet cards, portraits and weddings and sepia tones, captured time in 7 boxes. Remembrance bequeathed to me as part of my parents' will, a duty of care I did not want, but could not throw away. 7 boxes I resisted till faces floated in my dreams and blood called to blood as I lifted the lid to lineage and unknown lives. Overwhelmed by photographs, I cut with a ruthless sword, sorted familiar from antique faces, set aside most for burial. I dug a pit to ring with stone, chose granite smoothed by glacier, gathered oak and copper beech, added cedar, struck a match, built a blaze of branches, then offered thanks for each past life, placed upon my wooden pyre, and vowed to tell their story, and I released ancestral smoke with fire. The next poem is called Quilt, and this quilt is an image of my southern roots. As photographs and census converged, my ancestors' story slowly emerged. Sewn like a quilt, its patterns refined, with each painful truth cross-stitched into time. Gone was the golden story of whole cloth agrarian wealth. I learned as a child from the busy lips of southern aunts, fueled by Christmas brandy. Instead, a thick winter quilt with God's eye border to shroud lost babies in grief. Patches sewn in white and black blocks for landholders and slaves. Red swaths mark the bitter war that did not ever cease. But the center held an 8-pointed star of green and golden promise, so generations might repair the delicate thread that fixes hope. The next poem is called Jordan. Jordan Howse is the first traceable ancestor. He was a Virginia colony patriot, and he lived from 1746 to 1803. Jordan. Revolution came to grassy fields where he raised fine chestnut cattle, fed patriots with beefy yield while Washington fought long battles. Virginia's fields conveyed by King met loyalties divided. Jordan heard sweet freedom ring, but many with the crown were sided. Jordan's war stretched 7 years. Feeding patriots grew much harder. His wife Elizabeth spoke her fears. Too large their family, too lean their larder. No surveyor ever measured the courage of this man, who asked for a modest burial in a grave made to his plan. Claiborne. Claiborne Howse was Jordan's son, and he claimed that Tennessee land grant given by Washington. He lived from 1771 to 1851. Claiborne. From Virginia, riding Good Tilth's promise, a young man walked to Tennessee, claimed a tract of silky loam atop a limestone bed, and rested weary in a place once ruled by a vanished, long-ago sea. Earth fell sweetly through his hands, his thoughts festooned with what might be, changed chestnut to cabin and barn, pines to perimeter fence, and flowered meadows to furrows fed with new-channeled creeks. Claiborne's farm in Rutherford County held his dreams like a cup in God's hand, while unimagined below the earth lay a labyrinth limestone cave where his grandson would hide from bluecoat pursuit and an early Confederate grave. Mary Ledbetter Howse, wife to Claiborne, walked to Tennessee from Virginia. She lived from 1782 to 1821. Mary. Only 6 years remained in her life when Mary walked Wilderness Road, buffalo trace made wagon wide by the axe of Daniel Boone, a pilgrim's journey, crooked, steep, wet, her steps made votive by possibility. She traveled with other immigrants, scouted creeks and low grass for copperheads' rhythmic tell, listened close for the snap of a twig in forests where Cherokees hid. Beside the evening cook fire, she comforted husband and son with roasted game and welcome tastes of sweet fallen apples and plums. A screech owl choir assembled at night. Wolf howls frightened her dreams. First west, then south for 600 miles, Mary walked Wilderness Road, took Natchez Trace at Cumberland Gap, and followed the river to home. All around her chestnut cabin, sunflowers tracked the day. New-made fields held summer corn or hosted winter wheat. Tall grass cut for silage fed 6 well-mannered cows who daily stood for milking in their new-made cedar barn. 5 years safe in pastoral promise, Mary shared her final breath with early October, the harvest to come, and the piercing cries of her newborn son. Hezekiah Howse. He was the son of Mary and Claiborne, and I think we would call him a man moving up in the world. He lived from 1803 to 1844. Hezekiah. Gold corn is born from tassel and silk, a gentleman born from his dreams. Hezekiah, settler's son, favored by fortune and means, He farmed with an eye to profit, increased his father's estate, courted a girl, his dream to become son-in-law to the magistrate. His cap was set at Julia, who was but 15 years. With tailored charm, he pressed his suit and overcame his fears. Their dowered plantation flourished. 3 children grew apace. With Julia settled and wealth secured, he dreamed of a horse to race. 6 weeks he sailed to England, that green and binary land where people and horses divided by class, ascot for highborn, circuit for mass. Said masses spawned high-rolling wagers. With cool eye on purse size and gain, he bought the reigning circuit champ that Bobtail Bay called Tom Paine. A champ who raced like comets streak across a starry sky, caused a certain bell to ring too loud for aristocracy. This peerless horse ignited doubt. Such speed bespoke lineage. Peers of the realm who made racing rules mounted a search of true heritage. Pedigree traced to Lord Darley's sire revealed blood royal, not mixed. When thoroughbreds won a circuit race, their purse was rescinded as fixed. Banished forthwith from English circuit, Hezekiah and horse quickly sailed for greener pastures and Tennessee tracks where merit, not bloodline, prevailed. Unbidden hoofbeats soon drew near as death's chariot early appeared, his moneyed estate by last will recorded, an agrarian trophy to his young son awarded. A southern plantation with 5 feather beds, slaves to work cornfields to harvest the grain, plenty of wagons, beef, cattle, and cows, fine silver and china, and the fabled Tom Paine. With fortune amassed, this settler's son ran a short race at 2+1. Dressed in the silks of a gentleman fine, Hezekiah crossed the finish line. Julia Blackman Howse. She's the young wife of Hezekiah, daughter of the magistrate, and we would call her a woman ahead of her time. She lived from 1813 to 1891. Julia. As her wealthy husband lay dying, she emerged widowed mother of 3. Hezekiah's strict will of gendered clauses directed her dowered farm to their son. Julia, the magistrate's daughter, eschewed another marriage, fashioned her own will like a sturdy cedar bucket, and drew from a fierce, deep well. White-faced oxen plowed her land, their wooden yokes all hung with bells. Her pretty farm survived the war, rich with crops and cows and geese. On dowered land she lived her days, while one by one she freed her slaves. Lycurgus Howse. He's the only son of Hezekiah and Julia. He was a soldier in the 1st Confederate Regiment formed in Tennessee. He lived from 1839 to 1912. Lycurgus, gray-eyed, sorrow-bound soul, child bereft by his father's death, stripped of more than wealth by war. Lycurgus, loyal Confederate scout, took up arms at 22, swore blood oath to Southern cause with Sumter's guns white hot, swiftly marched vast Union troops toward central Tennessee with able generals keen to avail advantage from factory and rail, bivouacked in a limestone cave beneath his father's fields. Lycurgus spied on Yanks by night, slept as sunlight marked the days, protected by stalactites' gaze. A lonely soldier, soon to be smitten, stole from his cave one summer day to John Bell's fine plantation, an August feast, a shady lawn where watermelons waited ripe. Bell's daughter proffered sweet red delight. Her eyes found gray eyes, Melon met his lips, and lightning struck from a cloudless sky. Jolted, he proposed. Married 3 days hence. Honeymoon just one night, and then marched to Chickamauga's fight. Harrowed rebel, war survivor, 10 battles, 7 wounds, defeated, captured, imprisoned, released upon a loyalty oath, like a broken marriage. No exit, no reparation, endless desire for separation. And invisible scars played host to hellish deaths and blood-soaked ghosts. With shards of hope, he reconstructed burnt-out farm and life, fathered 6 with Mary Louisa, watched fever steal his wife, witnessed dowerless daughters and sons put too early to plow, abandoned the ghost-filled farmhouse, and walked the promised road to Nashville's growing mother lode. Gray-eyed Lycurgus, bent old man, could plow 20 acres, no more. He filed his Confederate pension claim and traded a farm in purgatory for a bed with an iron frame. Died in Nashville infirmary, buried by his son, now mayor, valorized as a soldier spy, eulogized with first love's glory and lightning from a cloudless sky. Mary Louisa. Mary Louisa was wife to Lycurgus, mother of 6. She lived from 1843 to 1883. Mary Louisa, smitten young was she, reigning beauty of Rutherford County. Defied her father, eloped and wed a gray-eyed soldier upon whose head Grant had set a handsome bounty. But well before the ink was dry on Appomattox Treaty, mirrors once friendly, reluctant grew to hold the beauty of her face. Bitter dregs of war replaced the taste of wine and wedding cake. 20 years she stood as wife beside a war-torn man, shaped their nascent hopes for life from swirling southern ashes. Sadly did her gravestone watch 6 children leave the farm, frightened by the ghosts of war, their mother's death, and more, compelled, not pushed, to find what lay beyond their worn-out oaken door. Hilary Ewing Howse, oldest son of Lycurgus and Mary. He lived from 1866 to 1938. From a harvest of sorrow on a hardscrabble farm, from a father enraged by Confederate loss, young Hilary turned away. He filled his Sunday suit pocket with 3 borrowed dimes and walked north to Nashville to find his tomorrow. Once settled, he walked home and claimed 5 others to share his boarding house room. He stood like father as sisters and brothers found their feet on a factory floor. Revealed by his portrait as Nashville's young mayor is a prosperous man in a red velvet vest. Concealed was the source of his fierce civic pride. It was the heart of a boy raised on hunger and need. And from the harsh kiln of childhood, he fired new bricks and built a city from an unpaved town. The working poor whose poll tax he paid were lifted from slums and warmed by free coal. Wrapped 6 times in victory's red vest, Hilary died quite suddenly, in office and legacy. His name on a school, written in Southern chalk, was erased by history. The next poem is called Inconvenient Bones. About a year ago, I visited Rutherford County, Tennessee, to search for my ancestors' graves. This poem is entitled Inconvenient Bones. There is a map from long ago of the farms of Rutherford County. My ancestors' land marked quite plain, with crosses where their bones had lain. Today, this land is bulldozed for houses. Granite headstones for gravel are crushed. Family graves for driveways are leveled. Blind eyes see such deeds can be hushed. Bright eyes of progress light porch and door as busy agents of sacrilege flout laws they can choose to ignore. My ancestors' inconvenient bones lie scattered and await the day their growing substrate chorus clear conscience might awake. And the last poem in this chapbook that I want to share with you does not have a Latin title, I promise. But it, for me, was a backward glance and kind of answered, the question of, what did people find, and what might we find going forward? A faint perfume surrounds us before the eye can see, a hidden branch of seckled pears, vanished orchard, time-worn trees. Earth's orchard shall to us be given, if we can learn just how to trade our steel-edged differences for a prune hook and a plow. So thank you very much. That's I would very much like to, Deborah, if I could do this, just invite the open mic at this point and give other poets a chance to say a few things, and then I'll finish up with a couple of poems, if that's all right with you.
You want to call up Emily?
Okay. Emily Dykeman.
All right, this is going to be short. Just a little snippet. Writing is the purifying fire that makes me holy. I am already sacred, but now purified, cleansed, filtered through a lens. I feel unqualified. I have imposter syndrome. For art, for love, for money, for adventure, for world changing. But my new mantra, I am not half-baked. I was born fully formed. My life a frying pan of beauty, tragedy, and exploration. Accumulating the accoutrement of experience, but no more or less worthy because of them.
Our next open mic is Carl Schmidt.
Hey,
Carl.
I'm so glad to be here. And wasn't Jennifer's stuff great so far? I'm going to read two poems, and I was going to read two poems, but I just changed which the first one was going to be based on what Emily read. So
That's good.
yeah, well, I haven't looked at it in a while. Let's see how it works out. It's called Tending Towards Sacred. As you step up to the stage, you're studying the last page. The lines you're memorizing defy all memorizing. Defy all analyzing. Maybe they don't make sense now, and who knows if they will. But bathe yourself in the drama. Submerge yourself in the art. Immerse yourself in the floodlights. Dig deep in your heart. Once you begin reciting, when you're inside your role, once you begin acting, it's under control. It all becomes holy. It all seems so fine, and it's tending towards sacred. It's almost divine. The script does not reveal it. You rehearse until you feel it, as muses intervening help to reveal the meaning. Sure, you're scared and anxious now, but the show must go on. You've got faith in the writer. You've got faith in the muse. You've got faith in your colleagues. They've all paid their dues. Once the curtain has risen, once the house lights grow dim, once it all becomes quiet, it's more like a hymn. It all becomes holy. It all seems so fine. It's tending towards sacred. It's almost divine. Now, a handgun in the first act. In the third, we'll come back. So as we sit here waiting, we are anticipating a gunshot will resolve it all and bring this to a close. So as the curtain is falling, there's an awkward pause. Only for a moment, and then there's applause. Bathe yourself in the thunder as it echoes through the hall. Take a deep breath and then take your bow, your final bow. It all becomes holy. It all seems so fine. It's tending towards sacred. It's almost divine. It's almost divine. On the occasion, I think of, that's the other poem I was going to read, so forget about Bob Dylan. Okay. During the first summer of the pandemic, I was walking down the street and came across a piece of plywood in the road. And it was just an interesting piece of plywood. And it inspired this poem, which is called Sawdust. There is pitch up to my elbows ever since I built that pine box so I could be replanted when I can grow no more. I've been pondering the velvet which I bought at a deep discount from the racks down at the Kmart when that used to be a store. And oh, I must be going, the casket wind does blow, and my roots are calling me to go. In this kaleidoscope of plywood, there are many shades of splinter. There are angles and reflections among the broken glass. There are questions left unanswered, even though no one has posed them, both rhetorical and actual, just waiting to be asked. And oh, do you miss the branches? Do you miss the leaves? And the bark that wrapped around you tighter than a sleeve? In the corner are my crutches, which I used to walk the tightrope. And I used to walk the low road and all roads in between. I'll be scattering the pavement from Memphis to Poughkeepsie, in the hills and in the valleys, in the rivers and the streams. And oh, I will travel all across the map. Wherever the tar leads, there I set my trap. I resolved it. I'm revolving in the orbit. I am following a satellite that was launched long ago. I'm excited by the prospects of training ancient insects to verify the taxes of corrupt and guilty souls. And oh, there's no accounting for the things we've done. The debts are quickly mounting, and there will be no refund. With my triplicate donations that I mailed from the gas stations of the highways and the byways of the fast expanding whole, we are driving around in clown cars full of jokers, queens, and rock stars who are plotting all their comebacks for the day they lose control. And oh, the best laid plans of both mice and men, they go astray, and who the hell knows when. In the true and last equation for damnation or salvation, you won't get into heaven until you solve for X. But my pencil, it is broken, and all my pens were stolen by accountants mad with envy of my dubious success. And oh, it does not add up, not the way you'd wish. We have to recheck those numbers because something is amiss. As the actors leave the stages which they've occupied for ages, they're ad-libbing every line as if there'd never been a script. And there's no use in complaining about the force of fiction straining. As a buzzsaw, it squeals louder with each log that it splits. And oh, we've been unplotted. There's no dramatic arc. Some fool turned the lights out and left us in the dark. We are all just sawdust, far as I can see. We are all just sawdust looking for our tree. Thank you.
What kind of tree was it? Oak, cherry? No?
Everybody's their own sawdust.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. This first piece, I actually wrote, I guess today, maybe this morning. We had the rain came through, because my wife and I just moved to an apartment complex just off the Hudson River. We can view and we look over the river on the second floor, and we see the bridge going across. And I was moved to write this just because of the way the weather kind of takes hold of all of us at times. And it's entitled Clouded Beauty. A cloudy day of sights, the bluish purple light grayed sky in itself illuminating by filtering the hidden sunshine of explosive brilliance. Colors are still present everywhere, but toned down as cloudy atmospheric molecules by millions filters the bright illuminating light from sun. Degrees of non-brightness is red from degrees of light to dark grays in sky above and across. Differences in what is seen as of color is a true mind blower to the human eye. At times, the explosive brilliance of sunshine demands looking away, then forcing back to visually remember beauty observed. As cloudy darkness becomes severe, the blowing in of possible tornado weather, a miraculous viewing of the dancing whirlwind tunnel twister of horrific destruction plays across the stage of performance. Is it time to hide in basement or stay observe? I think I'll stay.
Very nice.
Before I forget, I wanted to mention to you that I was born and raised my first probably 6-7 years in Memphis, Tennessee, and I had an uncle that lived in Chattanooga. So when you said that about the South and moving and walking across into Tennessee and all that, a lot of things bring back these remembrances,
Right,
you
right.
know, and a
We're
lot of
probably
what
cousins.
I write.
We're probably cousins.
I wouldn't be surprised. This piece is entitled, Who Am I? Wandering my world takes me through living day after day, into those realms of exuberant happiness, also into agonizing pitfalls of unwanted ugliness. Flying up into the blue heights of creative accomplishment is a spontaneous thought I seldom reach, but those that do are such an ecstatic inspiration to my mind, soul, and desire. I like sharing with others who I am in my writings and readings, and at times what I say is a downswing into where is, but not especially where I want to be. Going up this steep hill doesn't always let me reach the brighter top, but at expressive moments, a misdeed is a positive door opener. I attended a poetry meeting last night and realized I missed strategies of creativity when I heard readings of others. I feel I over-categorize when writing oftentimes, but expressing feelings of pro and con is where I find myself, taken by myself. Envisioning nature in my surroundings pulls me into personal expression of absorbed thoughts. The horrors of the world are addicting when seen and heard repeatedly. I have written of them and find letting go is not easy for that dark writing trail that is in front of my psychotic mind. This last piece, let's see, which will it be? I'll just go ahead and read this next piece as the last one. It's entitled Mind Engine. A writing room is paramount in offering creativity atmospheres, coupled with the capability of computer offerings of mind getaway for clearer returns to focus and edit advancements. Journal writing at desk is concentration explosion of ideas, many times a simple phrase triggering the river flowing direction to follow, focus, and finalize. Once that mind engine starts, acceleration takes over in a sprinting run to finish, but finish not as yet. Pull back from and turn off engine writing, clearing mind for a brighter comeback continuation needed to reach completion satisfaction. Music skyrockets mental breakaway into a new dimension of free creative spirit, short in time, then back and running, moving on the creative dance of writing in focused direction to finalize finish. Nature's naturalness has always been my impetus for creative expression. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Jennifer, for sharing your history of your family with us, and that was just that's an incredible chapbook. So I hope you get a publisher, self-publish it, because I just have two villanelles that I'm gonna share. I used to try to write them all the time because it was fun, and once you start writing them, you kind of get that rhythm in your mind and you become obsessed with them. So double rainbows bless my eyes. Double rainbows bless my eyes, God's reassurances after death of my father. Thousands of songbirds sing from skies. Years of sorrow, mournful cries, God's finger paints vibrant color. Double rainbows bless my eyes. Lone bagpiper plays, my soul revives. Ave Maria, St. Patrick in valor. Thousands of songbirds sing from skies. Eyes drink in color, splendid surprises. Jesus, earth's artist, there is no other. Double rainbows bless my eyes. My senses baptized, rhapsodized in God's wonder under holy cover. Thousands of songbirds sing from skies. Look up, look in, see beauty inside. Signs from heaven, God's imprint forever. Double rainbows bless my eyes. Thousands of songbirds sing from skies. They're kind of tongue twisters, you know? This one's I found $3 and 3 pennies. I always give away what I find. My Lord gives me more than plenty. Money rains down from heaven like confetti, blowing towards my feet, truly divine. I found $3 and 3 pennies. Sometimes I wish I found 20s. Singles, tens, and pennies I do not mind, for my Lord always gives me more than plenty. I give God back the dollars and my son the pennies. I hope this suffice to heavenly find. I found $3 and 3 pennies. My son said, when I am with you, everyone is more friendly. My son melts my heart and relish he is mine. My Lord always gives me more than plenty. Thank you, Lord, for sweet moments and every good thing that comes my way and a good find. I found $3 and 3 pennies. My Lord always gives me more than plenty. Thank you so much, and thank you,
So Deborah was being too modest about villanelles. They are devilish poems to write. They're a very difficult set form, and you've got to choose the same line and weave it in a manner that doesn't feel obtrusive when it's being read. And I've never tried one. I probably never will. But
oh, that's fun, Jennifer. Go home and
okay, Deborah. Well, we'll think about this. I want to thank Emily and Carl and tell me your name again, cousin.
Clay.
Cousin Clay, for reading their remarkable poems. And really, I think an open mic really gives people a chance to hear an amazing array of feelings and approaches and creative impulses which come to those of us who try to write poetry. So I'm going to close out this evening with first with some haiku. Haiku. So how many of you know what is a haiku? Very good. Okay, so how many syllables are in a haiku?
17.
Very nice. And what is the distribution of syllables across the 3 lines of a haiku?
5, 7, 5.
Excellent. See, Matt wrote a haiku when we were having a tech session. I was really, really impressed with Matt, your boldness to do that. Haiku also have 2 other characteristics in addition to their to that structure we just spoke about. One is, and this is formal haiku, they contain something called a season word. And a season word is a word that is drawn from a precise global lexicon of words associated with summer, fall, winter, or spring. And they're set. The lexicon is set. There are societies and experts who say, this is in the lexicon, this is not in the lexicon. And the purpose of the season word is to create a connection between the poet and nature, the natural universe. To create a connection. It can come in lots of different forms, but the idea is to really meditate, to bring about a meditation on a particular season. And then the last element is tricky. We think villanelles are tricky. This last element of haiku is very tricky. It's called the turn of thought. What is a turn of thought? A turn of thought is when you go from you hope, a beautiful description of the image built around this season word, but you take that image and you make it universal. You make it bigger than it really is. You go from a beautiful kind of literal description into the realm of metaphor, into the realm of symbol, into the realm of deeper meaning. And they look small and simple, and they're rather challenging to write. And I've recently started to try to write haiku. And I'm enjoying it very much. And I just wanted to share 3 with you that I wrote last week around the season word willow. Why is willow a season word? Because willows break out their beautiful kind of weepy, droopy leaves in the springtime, because the pussy willows bloom with their catkins, in the marshy areas. And also, in a haiku, the season word, in this case willow, can be used in a couple of different kinds of ways. So I tried to use willow in 3 different ways. First haiku. This is for the children, the child within us. Hide and seek behind willow branches touching earth, a green whisper room. The second haiku. Weeping in exile by rivers of Babylon, harps hang on willows. And that, of course, as you know, is a story of a very painful exodus of Jewish people from being slaves in Egypt and coming to the river Babylon and being so sad about all they had lost, and they can't sing anymore, and so they hang their harps on the willows, and that's actually a verse in the Bible. Weeping in exile by rivers of Babylon, harps hang on willows. And the last haiku is this. Down the Nile River, floating toward prophecy, a small willow basket. And that's the story of Moses. But as my haiku club pals told me when they were offering commentary, they said, it's really a very, very old myth in Asia and the Middle East of parents who place their children upon the water to find their destiny. And it's a very, very old myth. And so I really enjoyed, exploring that. And that was 3 haiku on the season word willow. And I would really encourage each of you, Matt's a perfect example, I would really encourage each of you to, try your hand, maybe write a haiku. Maybe write one every week. Think about the season. Just sort of reach that place in yourself. Haiku is a poetical form that is growing now in popularity in all countries. There are many clubs and groups and organizations of people who share their haiku with each other on a regular basis. And I do believe it's a conversation worth joining. So I just offer that for your consideration this evening. And the last poem I'm going to read is a traditional poem. And I would say I was finally able to write this poem. And when I say finally, what I mean is, and maybe you all have had the same experience, but I've been for quite some time now just haunted by the image of those empty rafts floating in the Mediterranean, where people have tried to leave one place and find their destiny, a better destiny, or a vanished orchard in another place. And I couldn't get that image out of my mind. And finally, it became a poem. So I'd like to read that to you now. Raft. Have you not been a refugee on a makeshift raft of wood? In transit from some certain grief, unmended by a well-made eulogy? Or cross some unfamiliar ocean to reclaim your shattered heart, passage booked for port uncertain, love upended, trust gone broken? Have you not ever dreamed about escape from certain dangers, been betrayed by leaden feet, or begged for help from strangers? If you have seen a makeshift raft floating empty on the sea, then you must surely know by now to give warm welcome to refugees. Thank you very, very much.